thought, Russell, this film were to be looked at by our descendants, like a Dead Sea Scroll in 1,000 years' time, what would you think it's worth telling that generation?
Mind spins in spirals like the Cogito. I think, therefore, but do I even know? Hume said the sun might not rise in the morning. Patterns ain't proof, just habits we adorn. Russell's teapot floating out in the void. Invisible doubts that can't be destroyed. Belief ain't a bird and the skeptic employs. Question the noise, the cosmos ploys. Skeptic's eyes always peeping the fraud. Truth ain't handed down, it's wrestled from the gods. Doubts my temple, my faith is flawed. Think it through twice before I applaud. Induction wobbles like a table with no leg. Hume's knife cuts leave certainty begging. A billion white swans, but I'm black renegade. Shatter the mirror, the cracks cascade. Cogito feels strong, but is it really? Thoughts build castles, clouds act silly. Russell's pot spins in the ether so freely. Prove it exists or the claim's too dreamy. Am I the dreamer or the dream in the show? The car wrestled devils, still didn't know. Faith and senses, they play tricks on a low. Truth's a mirage in a desert of woe.
When you are studying any matter or considering any philosophy, ask yourself only what are the facts and what is the truth that the facts bear out. Never let yourself be diverted either by what you wish to believe or by what you think could have beneficent social effects if it were believed. But look only and solely at what are the facts.
Hello, wonderful apes. And yes, Robin, you're right. Interesting is probably a good word for it. For those of you who are just joining, Mike was supposed to be our guest, and hopefully he still will be. It looks like he's coming back up online right now, but he is experiencing some technical difficulties and is presently rebooting. We had two subjects that were picked for today to talk on. One was a little bit on the subject of tag, or if many of you may know it as the transcendental argument. And we were going to talk a little bit on the subject of morality and the evolution of morality and how that developed in different stages of algoism. And likely, though it wasn't expressly told to me, the subject of the green beard effect. The only reason that I mention that is that I happen to know that the green beard effect is one of our earliest models to understanding kinship morality and its development. I was looking at some videos today of some apes of different kinds, both chimpanzees and baby gorillas, and watching their engagement with one another. I find it very interesting that inside of the transcendental argument, there is this ideal that we can't explain a few different aspects. One of them is that we need a God to explain logic, reason, and morality. And morality it's very interesting that would even be thrown in there, because it seems to me that we observe moral behaviors inside of all of the great apes. And we see this interaction happen more specifically with the children. I was watching a video today where a great ape was, it was a gorilla, baby gorilla was messing with another monkey, was pulling on his tail, and it started to aggravate him. And then the mother gorilla jumped up and ran and grabbed him and pulled him down, because the mother gorilla saw that this was about to escalate and be a problem. And it was interesting to see the mother gorilla knew when social bounds had been broke, to the degree that the baby gorilla didn't realize it was about to get hurt. Because it had pushed too far on a sleeping monkey. But the mother knew, she saw what was going on immediately, ran up there and grabbed her baby and pulled it back. And whenever I see engagements like this with apes, I can't help but think, how do you not see other apes and realize where morality came from? Realized that it is a development of a social order that could not be another way. If we are a social creature, you have to develop social recognition of other animals that are involved in that social structure. You have to recognize, and even though this was a completely different species, the mother ape realized that her baby ape was pissing this monkey off and that it was going to be a problem. So she ran and grabbed it to stop this from escalating. But little engagements like this that I see all the time, it's pretty clear to me that that morality is a product of evolution and a product of just engaging with other social dynamics. That it's something that it just has to develop, and it's selected for inside of the pressure. Because we are having a little bit of problem with getting Mike in here, and I want to check the comments to see if there's any updates on the subject. I wanted to make sure. I don't know if he said he was still working on the subject or if he's trying to come in at all. But I'm going to put the chat on the screen here, and I'm just going to check to see what's going on, see if we have any comments about whether he's working on it or fixing to still make it in. Unlikely 16th reboot attempt. Okay, fantastic. Well, Mike, if you get something going, drop in here, man. Just drop in. That being the case, though, I am going to try to engage a little bit with the crowd here and see what's going on with them. Hey, I didn't see Objective Ethics say anything in here. Is OE in here? Oh, Yeah. Yeah, I'm fixing to also put a link in the chat. I guess we're going to open the chat up. If this is going to be a little slightly untraditional than how we normally do it, but I am going to improvise. That's what we're going to do. So, OE is live presently. Gotcha. Put a link in the chat, and we'll try to pin that in a moment from the YouTube side. Here we go. Hopefully you'll see the link if anyone wants to join and talk on the subject. But I think the main presentation was going to be from Mike and what we were going to talk about. So we're having technical difficulties, and I'm sorry to say this is the first that I've ever actually had that happen. That the guest was having technical difficulties and didn't come on stage. So we'll run for a little bit. Anybody wants to come in and chit chat, you are welcome to come in. Yeah, I didn't know me and OE was overlapping one another's time frame as bad as we were whenever I moved to this, but I had to come off of the Saturday thing, man. I just, I need to be able to go out and do things with my family on the Saturdays, and Saturday was right at the 2 o'clock one. And by the time we get later date, we're getting in 3 or 4 o'clock. I'd rather not do shows then. We're a little more relaxed around the house. I'll either watch some streams. My wife might watch some TV and whatnot. But yeah, if anybody's interested in coming on in, you're welcome to come on in. We'll talk about either any subject. But tag was supposed to be on the table, the transcendental argument, but the majority of this conversation was going to be a conversation with Mike, and Mike is having some technical difficulties with his computer. We might have to reschedule this one. Next, here we got somebody coming in here. Scott, there we go. Scott, how goes it, man? I think you're muted. Can you hear me now? Guest has themselves muted.
Sorry, I had to figure out how to rummage around Restream.
Yeah. I think you've messed with primarily. You do the StreamYard, right?
StreamYard, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Restream's all right. I almost paid the subscription on the Restream thing. It has plenty of tools. I like its free use. I don't know. Some people are going more on the StreamYard, but the cost difference, if you're going to pay for it, is extremely different.
Yeah, and then when you try to pile on technologies in order to make your streams look more professional,
sure,
it the getting them to work together is always a big factor, it seems. So much of YouTube live streaming is messing with technology. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Oh, roboting. Oh, I hear an echo.
yeah. Well, a lot of that I try to test a little bit before I get going to make sure that I don't have any kind of things like that. But I've went into other channels, and it seems like I was on Robin's channel or someone's the other day that I think it was Robin's that couldn't figure out what mic I was on for the longest time. I found out I was actually, these buds actually have mics, and I was on the bud mic, and then I thought I flipped it and fixed it, and then I was on the camera mic. And it was finally the third time I got it on the boom mic. So playing around with it a little bit. What do you think, though, about the transcendental argument, man? This was supposed to be the argument on the table. Are you familiar with this argument a little bit, or have you talked to a few apologists on it?
I've definitely seen it thrown around a lot. Basically, because of the impossibility of the contrary, you have to assume God's existence, because only God is the necessary foundation for morals, ontology. Basically, if you're going to keep on existing, you need God, which that's never been proven. But in other words, in order to, you have to assume God in order to show that God exists or something.
Right. Well, and then, yeah, it starts with, you have this kind of presuppositional kind of attachment to it, but and presuppositional, there's obviously problems with presuppositional, but even the three primary reasons that they attach, I think, was logic, reason, and I don't know why it's distinguished, but is primarily logic and morality, and they really lean heavily on logic and the laws of logic, and say, well, that the laws of logic, how can the laws of logic exist? And to me, what's always been weird about this argument is it seems obvious to me that the laws of logic are just reflected by the consistency of reality. And right. we make those laws based on whatever the consistency of reality is that we've observed.
To me, it's a huge semantic game.
It is a huge semantic game.
The phrase used, and we use this casually, maybe not technically like a professional logician would, but we say that the laws of physics follow logic or something like that. They obey logic, but I don't really see that. I see that we get the laws of logic by observing the interaction of the physical world.
Yeah.
So I just don't see that physics has to follow anything. The laws of logic aren't causative. We observe reality and describe logic. We what's the word? We compile rules for logic based on what we've seen happening in the world, and then our interactions back and forth as communities.
Yeah, I think we generally just call logic whatever fails not to be consistent, or whatever does not fail to be consistent. So if it does not fail to be consistent and it happens all the time and it doesn't fail to happen, boom, it's a law of logic. It's just a consistent observation thereof. Falicia, how goes it?
Hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. One of the things about tag that always confused me is that it's more about they are the proponents, especially the presuppers, argue about like logic, reason, and morals, but tag itself seems to be built on the presupposition that intelligibility itself is is the argument. But I've never understood how one can make the leap from things are intelligible, therefore God. Why would intelligibility itself need to be argued to have a ground in metaphysics?
Yeah, it's a huge leap. It's really disguised as a God of the gaps is what it seems like it is. It's disguised as you can explain these things, but if there is a God, then a God explains these things, and then there's not any work that associates with there's a slogan that they'll say once they make the proposition of it. Then they'll say to explain these things, you have to have a mind that is beyond space, outside of time and space, and that they kind of do this citation of something that they repeat over and over, but there's no connection. You don't get any line from A causes B, and they just kind of just quickly shuffle past that. But yeah, there's no causation. You don't say, okay, why is a mind necessary for these things to be?
Yeah, yesterday I made a comment in the live chat during SNATA that it just sounds to me that all they're doing is disguising the word God for ground. That's just another layer they add to assuming God to prove God.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting because because I've heard this argument be made that your actual act of arguing already presupposes a world that is structured for intelligibility. But in order to make that argument, you have to assume that intelligibility is a presupposition. When it's not, it's actually reality. It's what we live in. It's what we all share. And so the argument is it's trying to undercut the shared argumentative platform that we all use. That is, reality exists, and they're just saying reality exists, therefore God exists. Is basically what tag boils down to.
Yeah,
it seems to me like intelligibility is really just. And this is, I guess, my metaphysics. I don't know. Does this count as a metaphysic? It's a product of neurological systems. Just complex systems of observation and rumination. Thinking about what you see and what you remember, and constructing a view. Okay, I want to say worldview, but that's not really what I mean. Constructing a perceptual landscape that that you can make predictions in. Like, so I know that if I go this way and operate these muscles, and I won't hit that tree. But if my perceptions are off, I'm going to hit that tree, and my lineage is going to die off.
So unless you are prepared to start going down into the discussion of why are your senses reliable, and you want to go down that rabbit hole with a presup, I wouldn't necessarily bring up senses
I love going down that rabbit hole.
I mean, it's a fun rabbit hole to go down, but if you want to have an actual intelligible conversation with the presup, it's probably not the best rabbit hole to go down.
I a little bit disagree, and I'll tell you why.
It's not an intelligible conversation. The goal of presup is to derail a conversation or to shut your mouth up. And that, that's stated. Bonson has always said, the foundational thing he said is the goal of the presup argument is to shut the mouth of the atheist. And what they do is they go, just like happened yesterday in SNATA. This guy comes in, or I say it's a guy, it could have been a female. A person came in, and we were talking about evolution and this dude from Loma Linda and where he was wrong. And suddenly he throws out a couple of presups, and everybody starts talking about that, and nobody's talking about where the creationists are wrong. It derails conversations, and that's,
it does. But that's why when it comes up, you have to be able to take it by the horns and take it into places maybe that they don't want to go with it. And what I like to do with the presup argument is when they're talking about grounding, let's make an assumption that we are presupposing certain things. But those presupposings that we make on a thing are based on priors, or they can not be based on priors. So if you're having a prior experience, let's look at a child that engages with a fire. That child puts its hand inside of the fire. In the fire, it has no priors whatsoever. There is nothing that needs to happen or the child to presuppose in advance for the physical interaction with the fire and its sense perception. There's no presupposition that needs to be present. When the child sticks its hand inside of the fire, there will be an interaction with the physical reality and its sense perception, and it will be an undeniable interaction. It just cannot be denied. And even if it's not real, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because the sense perception is going to engage with whatever is creating that, and it's going to make, it's going to record priors and that's just how it's gonna work. So that's the foundation. If you want to talk about a foundation, is that we have sensory perception and that we touch our world, we engage with our world, and we build priors, and those priors create our predictive models. When someone's saying something that they're presupposing something that they don't have prior experiences and they haven't physically engaged and touched with, be very suspicious of them. I do not care what their presupposition is. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, if they haven't engaged in a way with a physical reality that they've built priors, I don't trust them.
Well, what's even better about that argument that you just made, Robert, is that they will always try to take senses and stuff to the dualism type of area. But you can just straight up tell them, what about kids who were born without the sensation of pain? And you want to go down that route, because it's those priors are built on your physical sensations of interacting with reality.
Sure.
And then they'll want to basically go down to, well, what's prior to reality? You could just say that's incoherent.
Yeah. Well, and even then, there's priors with the person that can't feel pain. That there's priors in terms of they understand that that they have damaged now limbs or damaged whatever.
Well, no, functional. Well, there are children who literally do not feel pain, and they end up. Yeah,
but the damage still happens. The physical damage still happens, and now that's a prior experience of the physical damage that they now don't.
I'm talking about before. I'm talking about before they ever experience physical damage like that. Before they actually have that prior, like the first time they ever touch fire or something, they don't feel pain, and they just hold their hand there, like, oh,
yeah,
okay, yeah. That's really what I was discussing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but tag is, it's such a. I hate to call it a bad argument, but it's really just like, you have to accept my presupposition, the argument, and I just sit there and I go, no, I don't. So great. Now what do we do?
Well, I think there's a big difficulty with some people to make the statement that I don't know. Like, but now me or you or different people who've engaged in the conversation a little while, when we're asked a question like, where does the logic come from? We have a little bit more of a reason to understand. But before we built any of that, it wasn't a problem to just say, I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. Whereas when you already presuppose a God, it's obvious to you, well, it all comes from this thing that I already presuppose, right? It all has to come from there. But you could have presupposed a different God and yet had the exact same problem, or presupposed a different entity or spiritual plane or whatever you presupposed, and then you just attribute all of that. When we say, I don't know what it is, then we have a door that's still open that we can try to understand it more and understand its roots.
I think the problem with that, and not that it's a problem in itself, but it ends up opening up more questions than offering them answers, is it offers them the opportunity to continue to reify the concept of logic or the concept of morals and things like that as almost these platonic things that they want them to be. And so when they ask you, what is this object that is logic, saying I don't know is sort of conceding the idea that you think it's an object too. So I think that's like one of the bigger issues we have.
But if we don't know, Felicia, I think it's most honest to say that we don't know.
Absolutely.
I think that we do know now. That I had this conversation with a presupper just a few days ago, and he was doing this, and I'm trying to think. I think it was over on Gangsters Ghost. I don't know why I even poked in there, but I poked my head in there. And he was doing this kind of presup argument that he presupposed things in advance, and he said, "Oh, you presuppose this and that," and I began to tell him that I don't presuppose anything that I don't have a prior experience with. Do you have a prior where you've seen logic come from God specifically, and what does that look like? Right? What does that even look like? And there's this kind of now you can't see it come from God, or you can't. There's no way to see logic come from God. But what happens is what we now assume, and it's similar to the water puddle argument. I don't know if you know, with the puddle being in there, and the puddle being in the right. It's shapes, specifically for me, right. Well, he thinks as if logic is is something that is a shape we're talking about reality and how reality works and the consistencies of those models. And we're talking about like how logic engages with that. And rather than him thinking what logic is as a byproduct of the shape of reality and how we engage with it, he thinks that reality is a byproduct of the shape of a pre-existing logic. And it's like the inversion problem. It's the same thing with the puddle. He thinks that the logic is there first and that the mind creates it rather than there's a physical reality. And we're just shaping what logic is based on how the physical reality interacts.
Yeah, I think an argument could be made. So I understand the pre-suppers' point of view in terms of logic. The problem is they don't understand that logic is just a label of rules we give to observations.
Sure.
It's not a thing that happens. It's not some sort of physical magic thing. And I think a lot of them do that. I think they think of logic as a fundamental part of reality, when it's more of like an emergent thing of the fundamentals of reality. And so they have a really hard time seeing that. So you end up with that puddle analogy, but I think an easier way to discuss it with them is saying, what if logic isn't prior to physical reality? What if you try to bridge them towards your way of thinking, saying, hypothetically, what if logic and reality are co-primary instead of logic being primary and reality being secondary? Try to help them think like that. Like, hey, maybe these things are really actually so tightly interlinked, you cannot say one of them is primary.
Yeah.
But that's only for the pre-supper who isn't Darth Dawkins.
Right. Well, you could do this argument using some kind of modal arguments too, and you can do it like one of the laws. You can pick a law like a law of non-contradiction, and you can say, can you imagine a universe where and I did this before with like an apple and an orange, that an apple, I don't know if you've ever played with the older Transformers, I'm showing my age. You'd have these Transformers that could transform from one shape into another shape, and you could have something that is both whatever you want to call it. Let's call it a baseball and an orange, right? Or a baseball and an apple, and there's just this slight transformation. If we're talking about atomic structures and whatnot, can you imagine something that could be both an apple and an orange, depending on the stated time? It's all the same atoms, it's all the same things, but the form and shape that it's in and what it just minerally is, that it's an apple or it's a baseball. If we could exist in such a world, then if that was our universe, then we would not even have the law of non-contradiction, or we wouldn't have the law of what is the damn thing of
identity,
the law of identity, like that it's locked as this thing. And we still have a problem with the semantics of identity even now, when we say something like it's a sapling and now it's grown into a tree. We might use that terminology, but when does a sapling become a tree? And it's a joke, because the reality of it is these are two different identifying terms, and it can be both a sapling and a tree. There's no point at which a bud, it's now it's a flower. There's this exact moment of where it's no longer a bud, now it's a flower. And even the parameters and the edges of like the atoms, where we get into the electron field, where is the edge of the product that is its identity?
That's because the one big weakness is and I think it's maybe I don't know where it comes from. They can't handle processes and systems. It's like fundamentalism is very binary anyway. You're either this or that, but we're talking about processes where there is no defining line of demarcation, or many times what you're doing, like in where you classify and categorize things, you think there's a process that you can provide lines of demarcation, but the more you study them, the more fuzzy they become,
yes,
the more exceptions you get, and so you're always adjusting. So that whole example is that it leads to, well, I can't tell where it goes from being a bud to being a tree. Let's ask this guy.
Social science is a really good one
to give us a rule about that.
Social science is a really good example of that too. Like market omniscience is a great example of something that's easy to look at as teleological. Um, and so kind of considering as well where something comes from. It's like, yeah, people are going to use information to balance pricing and supply and demand and stuff like this. But and even if it works 99% of the time, or it reaches towards 100% efficiency is what data models show, that's still, it comes from someplace different or something like that too.
Yeah. Hey, Doug, how's it going? Thank you for coming on, man. It goes back to there's this saying about an analogy that every analogy breaks down at some point. And the truth is every description, every identifier of a thing breaks down at some point. It just does. Even to say that it's, and I only used Apple because I heard, what's his name? I heard Kurt use the Apple example at one point about this exact same subject. At some point, that Apple, what it is that Apple breaks down as to whether that is the Apple. Even when we do this with touch, we use the term touch pragmatically, and we talk about touching things, but there's no contact of atoms. No atoms do not touch. There is like a fluffy electron field, so to speak, that the fields interact with one another, and then you get they interact enough that there's force, that there is resistance, but there's no actual touch. So then what is the ontology of touch? Does touch exist? It still exists because it's pragmatic to us. We use it as a word to understand how this force is interacting with that force. But in the strictest sense, is there contact with atomic structures? No, it's not.
It's also a matter of scale, and we have a hard time comprehending scale. And it's a matter of any kind of model or description we're going to provide, even if statistical models, market models are going to leave out information that's pertinent, even because you can only handle so much point data like that. So
I mean, information
is going to be incomplete.
Information is just such a new thing too, right? It's really weird to think that Isaac Newton was doing, like, in some sense he's doing physics, and when you do physics, maybe you have to be doing informational physics. Like, that's just what it is,
right?
Actually, but and so saying that a theory can accommodate for that, and then you do have a sort of actual constructed scientific system that's producing knowledge or something. Like, those are cool big ones too.
I mean, information theory is one of the leading reasons why I don't hold to, and it's going to sound weird, why I don't hold to substance ontology, but I focus on relational ontologies, because the idea of substance being primary and everything doesn't make sense in a world that we live in. Everything's like a network of relations. So information theory is one of those things that really push me towards thinking like that. Some pretty interesting stuff when you dig that deep.
I have seemings right away that that that's at least a difficult conversation to have. I think
it's
relations of what? Oh, of substance. Okay.
No, it's not relations of substance. It's relations of relations. Substance is just the pattern that emerges from the relations.
Well, you could be the other way. The relations are just a pattern that emerges from the substance. The only reason
you could argue that, except you'd have to prove that an electron exists prior to being measured. That's tough. So I don't try to do that.
So does it count, like when you touch somebody else's finger and the static electricity shocks you? Does that count as measuring?
That counts as measuring how much you hate the person that shocked you.
There can be no morals if there is no one to enforce them.
Exactly. It would be
that is hilarious.
Psychological still. Purely psychological though, right? Like, that type of the idea too, even that like a future electron contains the state of the electron you observed. Like, it has that probability in it. Like, that's I don't know. That's like a Blitz, I think Dr. Blitz level stuff, but whatever.
Y'all coming into this, I just seen this comment on here. There can be no morals if there's no one to enforce them. It's
a good line.
It's a good line. Yeah, I was just talking about before y'all come in that I was watching some gorillas, that I was watching a baby gorilla that was pulling on the tail of another monkey. and it was pulling on the tail of another monkey to the degree that the mother realized this was going to be a problem. And the mother jumped up and ran over there and grabbed the baby monkey before, or the baby gorilla before it was an issue. The only enforcement there was the mother. The mother realizes that this other monkey is going to get pissed off by my baby pulling on its tail and it's going to hurt him. So, so the enforcer of that was just the observation of reality and the engagement of those relations, so to speak, between the two. That something was going to be a problem. So she got.
We have a pronouncement from Leo
That type of
Felius.
argument, though, isn't that type of argument
Ooh.
as
Leo Felius corrected me.
as much about the philosophy of science or something as it would be interpretation?
Electrons do exist prior to measurement interaction. That's the definite outcomes for observers. Thank you, Leo Filius. I am really actually very terrible at this stuff, so I appreciate that. No, I am. I'm absolutely garbage at this stuff, but I'm still learning. So
Sorry, one more time, Duck. Hit us with that again. I didn't quite understand it.
Yeah, I was just thinking like, yeah, I don't know. I was reading Leo's comment and trying to listen to what you were saying as well. And yeah, this idea that, you know, in some senses, these arguments are almost like interpretations, because there isn't experimental proof of a monad or, you know, some worldview or structure that supports these things still, you know, and so there's maybe loose deduction, some inference and things like this that tend to exist and happen, but it itself, you know, if any of it's like new or newly contextualized and heard, you know, right, this isn't like an inference, like a formal language or something like this either, you know, it's, I don't know why I'm talking, but you know,
why not?
Yeah,
Keep going.
Yeah, I agree in large part. I think, and I also agree that morals are oughts. That you have to start with an ought. You have to start with a preference, whether that preference is even the God character. Let's just say that is the case, that God is expressing an ought, it is expressing a desire, and then if that desire is not followed, then it's out of alignment with that ought statement, so to speak. It's out of alignment with what it wants to be, the outcome. And in the same way, what we have is an emergent ought that is the societarian ought, which is the ethics of the society, and that changes. There is a collective ought voice, so to speak. There's a collective it ought to be this way voice that is the structure and the protection of the society. That society says we ought not behave this way, we ought not be able to kill one another and get away with it.
It is, truthfully, it's a social norm, though, and so someone could just as easily be an existentialist and discuss and so the discussion that you sort of earn is that, like, well, these are also sources of historical injustices. Mm-hmm. You know, there's something to be said of anti-scientific or technological arguments coming out of Europe in the 19th century and stuff like that too.
Such as,
you know, and so like, you know, I think I don't know. I'm being awkward. I don't know why I'm always awkward on your panel, Robert, but here I am.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I was saying, such as, you're saying these arguments that are coming out of there, but such as?
Yeah, I would say, if we're talking about moral oughts, what comes to mind today? Yeah, like what, you know, I think what comes to mind is like the conflation of things like national character with something like an identity. You know, these are two really different things, again, to social scientists. You know, a national character is the fact that every 15-year-old in the United States has a physics textbook and they've got a novel in their backpack, right? That's part of the national character, is that their parents probably should be bugging them about getting a job at a restaurant or something. You know, but like this isn't national identity, and so to somehow extrapolate that this is like there's a norm or an ought, you ought to be educated in the United States, you know, people do take that to be a moral ought, and it sounds so reasonable, right? Go to a secular humanist channel, they're going to say, well, everyone in the United States should have an education, but there's no clarity there. So how can you even say that that's a useful statement if it's not fundamental or it's not philosophical?
Fair.
It's just babble. It's just, and that's not like that big of a deal, but it is just, it's like small babble or whatever, from me.
Yeah. I wanted to put this on the screen because this is, if society defines morals, then it boils down to a mere opinion. Why should someone else's morals be more binding than mine? And it's not someone's morals. It's the center of the collective group of morals to the degree that they're going to enforce them. So if the collective morality of the group says, we're not going to allow murder, but your morals says, no, that's totally fine, I can murder people, then you engaging in that interaction is just going to mean that society is going to decide what they're going to do with you when you violate their collective agreement. That's just all there is to it.
I've always wondered this about theists and people who worship a god, and attribute morals to gods. But how do you explain the fuzzy edges of morals exactly? And I don't just mean like the weird things like, the soccer team trapped in the mountains type of morals, but I mean like the fuzzy edges of morals where different cultures collide. How does your God hypothesis explain that in a way that's better than, say, some sort of fuzzy edged moral or emergent morality type of viewpoint? Because I've never understood how some sort of absolute moral can
exist,
can resolve can exist. I mean, can resolve the fuzzy edges. I've never understood that.
Well,
they resolve the fuzzy edges by shouting louder and hitting harder and using more weapons.
Yeah, you can do this. You can even test this a little bit with like propositions that should be declared as like definitive statements. Let's say something like "Thou shalt not kill," for example. If we say something like that, and then we create scenarios in which case you believe that it's okay to violate that rule, right? So we might have the example of it's okay to do that if you're defending your own life. Okay. Then someone else might say it's okay to do that if you're defending someone else's life. Or someone may even go as far as saying it's okay to do that if you're defending your life or limb or liberty, is one well-known terminology. But that may vary greatly depending on the person that you're talking about, when it's okay to violate or break that and say, well, that has to take a second seat, because something else is being infringed, and in which case it's okay to suspend that rule of not to kill or to not whatever.
But it also seems like to me that... Oops, sorry.
Well.
Hello.
So
how goes it, man?
Reboot number 25, which finally worked, Mike?
I shut it down for a while, and I went and did a little farming, and waited for it to cool off, and then I restarted it 3 more times, and the third time was a charm. So now, as long as I don't shut it down or try to restart it, every time I've restarted it screws up. So there's something going wrong with this Mac. So
you need to go to the Apple supermarket and pick up a new Apple computer.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to do this without any props and without any camera, and see how it goes. So.
Okay, you got a any kind of thing that you're going to display? You got a model or something? I don't remember what the hell you call it. A slideshow or something?
I had so much. I had a whole bunch of stuff that I did with ChatGPT on presuppositionalism.
Yeah.
And I think the last one I did was on this idea of grounding intelligibility.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, in order to ground intelligibility, you are going to have to make intelligible statements and propositions.
Right.
So you've already got a circle, right? You already have to assume intelligibility. But where we usually go wrong with these guys, we allow them to get away with this grounding thing. Mm-hmm. And what they mean by that is God. I mean, it's a religious idea, being able to foundationally and fundamentally ground something about our minds and our culture and our language in something bigger in the universe, right? So like some ultimate foundation. They're already presupposing they're God. And that's what they do. And then if you go on to possibility of knowledge, you go on to morality, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to keep slipping you back to, well, how do you know right from wrong? What is truth? And they're going to treat truth as if it's some sort of ontological foundational thing that's floating around out there in the fourth dimension or fifth.
Right.
And that thing can only be their concept of God. Now, and then if you try to ask them about their God, they won't tell you anything about it at all. They obviously assume that the only way for there to be intelligibility or logic is for there to be a mind God, not just a God. I mean, a God could be the universe, right? Or anything.
Sure.
So they've already got you right there. They've already got you on this idea of the spirit mind, right? That can somehow, I mean, the spirit mind is an intelligence, and because it's an intelligence, that grounds intelligibility. I mean, that's just bullshit circular reasoning all the way around.
100%. Start with the conclusion, you'll end with the conclusion.
Right. Yeah. And then, you know, even if they did come up with some, like, we need something in another dimension or something in another, you know, that isn't in time space in order to ground things, right? Why would that thing be the Christian God? Why would that thing be a mind like we have? So there's this idea that they constantly project what we are as human beings, as tool-using primates, onto the foundation of the universe itself. And it's ridiculous because we're just a little tiny bit of goo on a little thin film of goo,
yeah,
a little tiny speck of dust in the middle of the goddamn universe. You know, and it's like,
you can almost cut them off with every how do you with priors. Just say priors. Just every time. But how do you priors? Just it's always priors. Honestly, it's always priors. No matter what the rest of your question is going to be, it's priors. And because that's the truth of it. We engage with priors. It's even how we knew, what the rest of their question is going to be. It's because of priors. It's everything is based on priors. When we're talking about people use these terminologies like faith. Well, you have faith that the sun's going to come up. No. I assume some consistency, and it may be wrong. The consistency of what has already been going on and whatever I've already observed, I assume some that continuation. If I've seen it happen in a pattern, if I've seen tap, 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 I assume the next thing is a tap. Can I be wrong on that? Sure, I can be wrong on that. But it's all I have. It's just literally all I have is the priors.
Yeah, and we find ourselves in the middle of life in the universe, right? At some point, sometime around when we're 1 to 3 years old, we find ourselves in the world. And we start asking why questions, and it's like, well, it's too late. Basically, there's we ask mom and dad, why is the sky blue? Why is there air? Why am I going to die? All this bullshit until they whack you over the head and you shut up. But these foundational, the point is that we are in the middle of this universe that we have discovered, and we have discovered laws of logic and things
breaking up a little bit on this mic, but
nature and matter.
You're roboting
space robot.
All
breaking on.
Domo arigato.
Now you straighten out for a second.
He can't hear us. He's too lagged.
That
he's zoned out. Mike, if you can hear me, you are experiencing technical difficulties, and your mic is cutting in and out.
Really have or have to have an answer.
Yeah.
For why that is there.
Mike, I'm gonna pull you off for just a second. I'm gonna give you a brief break. And I'm gonna bring you right back. Something's going on with your mic.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
microphone. Anyway,
okay.
I think I had that problem.
All right, I'll bring you right back on. If you can hear me, I'll bring you right back on in a moment. I just want whatever that is to time out on whatever's built up because there's this buffering issue now that's trying to feed into the system, and I just wanted to give it a second to time out.
He needs to get some liquid cooling for his Mac.
Yeah, there you go. Something I don't know. But he's been experiencing some technical difficulties today, unfortunately. I've been wanting Mike on, and it just happens to be this day that he comes on that he's experiencing these technical difficulties. But we're going to check back with him and pull him on and see what we've got going on. Mike, did it straighten out?
How about now? I don't know.
I can hear you perfectly now.
Yeah, but it ain't going to last long. I have
couldn't
no
say.
faith.
Based on your priors.
Yeah. So I was listening to you guys handling some of this stuff while I was while I was doing my hobby and waiting for my computer to and my thought was that you guys are doing just fine without me.
No. This is unfortunate. Well, I tell you, more than anything, all we've talked about on the subject is tech, and we haven't gotten into the subject of evolution on the subject really at all. And I'm curious what your thoughts are as to how not only logic but morality, and I think that's one of the main subjects that you picked. Like, how is this developing? Do you look more at like the Greenbeard effect as a model, or do you think that there are other better models of like how morality kind of come about, and was it a necessity that it had to be in social groups?
Robert, was I distracted? Did you define the Greenbeard effect? Because I don't think I've heard of that before.
I did not define it. I assumed it would be a subject that Mike would use as a topic. I assumed, and I may be wrong. Mike, you there?
Okay, am I still breaking up? Because you guys are breaking up
no, you sound
real
great.
badly. I've got all kinds of buffering going on. I'm not sure what you mean by green beard.
Well, the Greenbeard effect was the idea that altruism develops, and I'm sorry, it's been a minute since I've touched on this subject, but there are actually YouTube videos of simulations of the Greenbeard effect. The ideal is that something that has a genetic similarity or a physical similarity, that if you show an extension of altruism towards that thing, even sometimes at the cost of your own deficit, that it might put you in danger or whatnot, to protect something that is like you, that what you create is you have a kind of a systemic, that group is self-helping itself, but anything that has a different characteristics. Greenbeard was used as a visual effect, especially in simulators and whatnot. Everything that has a green beard. So let me extend altruism to, and it's a tantamount to kinship morality. We're extending morality to, and we're willing to take a deficit in our own, that it could harm, something could harm us, but we're still protecting something that is like us. And what it winds up doing is protecting things that has the similar or same DNA. So a wolf that has a cub that is from its pack, that wolf might be willing to put itself in danger more to protect that cub than it would anything that doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like me, doesn't sound like me, doesn't smell like me, won't put myself on the line for it. And what happens is that particular genetic structure that is being protected by that group winds up advancing more and more as that group protects that genetic structure and it moves forward. And Greenbeard was just used as
that would definitely result in a selection pressure, for that particular kind of altruism. But okay, going back quite a ways, I like to ground things biologically, because first and foremost, I recognize that I am a biological organism. And so everything about myself, I kind of have to interpret as what is the biological nature of this, of this thing that I'm doing, right? And of course, humans have this incredible brain with these extra conceptual layers. And so we tend to confuse ourselves with that. But if you go all the way back to just a single-celled organism. Now, before I do that, Quine was kind of famous for wanting to naturalize epistemology, right? And in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy on naturalism and epistemology, they talk about traditional epistemology, and then they talk about Quine's project for naturalizing epistemology. Of course, Quine, I think, failed because he tried to naturalize it with psychology.
Occasionally. Mike's connection
biology
seems to be.
And I don't think he
Yeah. Mike,
piggybacking.
If you can hear me,
anyway,
you are experiencing.
much of
Can you hear me, Mike?
theorizing about central epistemic notion reflection. So they did you lose me? It's going to be a
Yeah,
problem. I wonder if I
think,
try
Mike,
to.
Yeah.
Maybe I can try to get this straightened out, and I and we can reschedule.
We're going to run for another hour. It's okay. We're going to run for another hour, and we'll definitely do another show together again, Mike. But if you get anything straightened out, come back in. I'd love to talk to you more. We generally will do the 1 hour guest thing, and then we do 1 hour of open chat. So we've kind of done it backwards. So we're going to run for another hour anyway. But come back if you get it sorted out. We'd greatly love to talk to you, man. But we'll definitely reschedule something too.
Okay, that'll be better. We have to communicate. These are top subjects. Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
Appreciate it, Mike. Have a good one, man.
Throw me out of here. Can you throw me?
Poor guy.
I'll pull you off. Yeah.
The end there, he turned into a Dalek.
That's all right. So the Greenbeard effect. If you haven't seen the simulators on the Greenbeard effect simulators, you should definitely watch that. That is a must. I think they even have some softwares that you can play with and see the Greenbeard effect. They're like the selective pressures inside of a system. So it's like a simulator that'll run and it'll show selective pressures, and it'll show how one character can be disposed to an X amount of risk that they'll make a 10% risk or something that they could be harmed, but it still increases the total selection of that group. So if they're just giving a little bit, I'll put myself at risk for someone who looks like me. And in that case, they run something that looks, whether it's the right kind of beard or the right color, they'll do hats on the simulators and stuff. But if that iteration gives X amount of self-imposed danger to protect something that looks like him, then the system winds up continuously selecting for it, even though it can obviously be self-detrimental. And they have... Go ahead.
I was going to say there's an interesting study from 2011. The Greenbeard effect predicts evolution of traitorousness in two-tag prisoner's dilemma. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Greenbeard effect is a great it's a great thing to study, but I mean, I think that was first introduced in like 60s and 62, 63. A gentleman wrote on that, and then Richard Dawkins wrote on it.
He coined the term, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Richard Dawkins coined the term. I was not aware of that. But the observation in similarities and kinship morality, that it looks like it smells like it. They find similarities. And what happens is generally it's inside of the same group, whether it's their own child, because your own child will be the most similar to you. So there's this characteristic to be to extend kinship morality to something that looks and acts most like you, and that's kind of how it develops.
Yeah, William Hamilton in 1964.
There you go, 64.
And then Richard Dawkins coined it in 1976 in The Selfish Gene.
Yeah.
I have a green beard, and I will be altruistic to anyone else with green beards. Interesting.
Yeah. So, and then they have simulations and stuff that you can watch videos. I think I put a link on there, but I think that's a part of how altruism developed, is just giving special attention to and being able to put your own self in danger. But I think another part of it is just like I was talking earlier with the monkeys, with the baby gorilla that was interacting with the monkey. I think parents realize, based on their own priors, they know that this is going to be a problem and that certain behaviors cannot be exhibited to other animals that can cause a threat to them. So,
I think an interesting counter argument that could be brought up by a theist would be, well, how come we see that across all animals, but we really don't? Because if you bring up the example of the opossum literally has her children on her back for several months. Mm-hmm. And if chased, she will literally shake them off and run away, letting her children get eaten.
Sure.
And it's like, It's just their survival plan, and I think this is just another example of a survival plan. This sort of altruism.
Yeah,
there are many species that will kill or abandon their young.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's just in certain, and of course with species with higher functioning, I think will do more kinship selection, kinship protection, and things like that. Once
Scott,
again,
it actually might not be that though, Scott. It might actually be the iteration and the speed at which they reproduce their young. So a full-grown possum can, like, I don't know how often they'll produce young, but that possum can be pregnant again within a few weeks.
Mm-hmm. They have 2 or 3 litters a year. Yeah.
So this might be more a part of the selective thing. And there's this other one that's like colonial evolution and like the evolution of colonies, which in the case of most evolution, it will not put itself in danger unless it is for that kin selection. But when you look at like colony evolution, most things are not suicidal, but inside of colonies, they exhibit suicidal behaviors because it's not about their behavior having to maintain their life or their bloodline. It's their behavior has to be beneficial to the bloodline, specifically of the queen. It has to be beneficial to. So in that case, will you see individual species that are suicidal, so to speak, to protect the queen? Absolutely. Now, you don't see that in non-colony evolution. You don't really see that behavior as much. Whereas in colony evolution, you see it all the time because it's all about whether it's benefiting that bloodline, not their own personal.
Yeah.
But different types of models to survive.
And it's just really interesting to hear, to hear theists say that God grounds that when it's like, but how? How does that grounding work? What is the function of that? I don't understand. Like,
pumping
and then you're
juice into it through these invisible hoses, and that existence juice makes makes your rationality rational. It makes you continue to exist. It makes you makes things universal, I guess, because they love to talk about universals as well.
Yeah, there's a gap, obviously. There's a problem with connecting that back to a God. That even if you say, that these things exist, and even if there was a secondary external causal thing, it's still a problem to get it back. You can't get it back. So this is where we have the problem that every person that puts forth these arguments, instead of arguing for their God or their literature and the God character inside of their literature, what they're doing is they're actually arguing what I generally refer to as a philosopher's God. They'll argue for a philosopher's God that this thing must necessarily be, and then they'll try to tie that. Once you accept that this thing must necessarily be, they have to tie that back to their God specifically in the character.
Kind of a proxy God.
Sure.
That kind of
That's exactly what it
like
is.
the philosophy, dresses like philosophy rather than dressing like magic or whatever.
Yeah.
So then that sort of explains why they throw the accusation at atheists that evolution is your God rather than God is your God. They think we come from the same spot of we've just presupposed this as an answer and then tried to connect the dots to it, similar to what they're doing with their
everybody's going to worship something, so atheists must be worshiping something. It's evolution.
I worship sleep. The older I get, the more I worship sleep, baby.
Ain't that the truth? I cannot predict any time I'm going to have a good 8 hours of sleep. 8 hours of sleep is so far. You know how you have those rearview mirrors that makes things look further away? Well, mine looks miles away. So yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, a good 8 hours sleep would be so great to me.
Yeah. Hey, Hizzle, how's it going, man? I thank everybody for stopping in here. Unfortunately, y'all that are coming in a little late, Mike has experienced some serious technical difficulties and is not able, unfortunately, to be on the show. He might pop in a little later if he gets some more straightened out. But if it looks like false advertisement, I apologize on the stream. Mike's just experiencing technical difficulties. We'll have to have him back on some other time. We are fixing to have on me. It's all right. That's all right. We just opened the panel on up. And you know what I'm going to do? Actually, right now, I'm going to do the invite one more time. I'm going to put it in there, and then I'm going to pin it. And anybody wants to come in, we're just going to make it an open chat show here. I'm going to put that on there, and then I'll go out and pin it.
Yeah, absolutely. That way you don't have to just listen to us ramble on. You can ramble too.
That's all right. It's good company.
Yeah. Like meeting new people. It's fun.
Yep. Yeah, you run your own show, or you just jump around to a few different people there, Felicia, or what?
So I have a lot of social anxiety problems, and so one of the things I've been trying to do with working with my therapist is trying to get more involved in the atheist community. And so I've been jumping around to a lot of different streams. I'm thinking of starting my own little live stream in the morning, maybe some calm, just chat with an atheist software engineer in the morning, get my brain going with some coffee, and then because I see a lot of the atheist shows, they're all very antagonistic because it gets all the views, and I just kind of want to be chill, laid back, meet some good friends, and maybe chat.
Yeah, you're going to find a wide variety. Some are more antagonistic, some are not. Some become antagonistic as we have people that come in and start being antagonistic, and then it develops into that. And you've seen a little bit of that earlier. I don't know, the gentleman that was poking a little bit. So sometimes you'll see tone changes, but there's some really chill. I'll tell you some really chill ones that are not very antagonistic, and that's Ed, the Rabid Atheist, which is a great plug and segue to next Sunday. Ed from the Rabid Atheist is going to be on our show.
Yeah, Ed's awesome. I'm part of his community too. He's really cool. He's chill. With I Kill Earl, IKE, doing his artwork.
Yeah.
So it's a couple of awesome people in that community. So
yeah.
And
then you'll have some that are so debate me, bro, kind of people that it's not everybody's cup of tea, for sure. And I do a little mix of those that'll push a little bit. But the truth be told, I mean, some of these arguments are really bad arguments, and they do deserve to be pushed against. If they could be pushed against a little bit in a good way, in an explanatory way, and not so much a provoking way, that's fantastic. That'd be the better way to do them. But people have different styles.
I find the debate scene is way more performative and clickbait than it is actual, like, worthwhile in terms of intellectual discussion. And it's nothing to do with like the individuals involved, but it is everything to do with the social media involved. And it's just how the ecosystem is. So it's definitely ends up not being my scene. But I will say this about arguments: if you want one of the worst arguments, in my opinion, as a software engineer, it has to be the fine-tuning argument. That's probably got to be one of the worst. To take constants in mathematical models and say those constants are real and can somehow be changed blows my mind every single time I hear it. To take our mathematical models of reality and to be like, hey, what if we just change these numbers? And we go, you realize the numbers are the way they are is because that's how our models work, right? Not because that's what reality dictated.
Yeah.
You get that? No? Okay.
Coming in again, Robert.
Yeah, I'd seen that. Yeah, I told him, come on in. Let's give it another try. I think he's got a different connection or a different browser or something going on. By all means, come on in.
Maybe we'll get him an overclocked computer.
Yeah.
We'll fundraise.
I don't know. I've seen many of his streams. He's normally never had this problem. So I think this is, I don't want to call it an isolated incident, but it's a failure in a system that I've not really seen where they have a problem.
Well, maybe there are too many people in here. If you want, I can drop, see if that helps.
Nah.
Okay.
That's not it. I don't have a bandwidth problem.
No, I
don't know if Stream does. Mike, how goes it?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I hear a little crackle. We'll see how it goes.
Really? Another crackle. Okay, we're screwed. So I was going on before, and you guys couldn't hear a thing I was saying, right?
Well, it just kept on doing the buffering thing. Like we would hear a little bit of your words, and it would keep on roboting out and whatnot. So,
okay. Well, I shut down OBS because I thought maybe that was the culprit. But
could be.
Now, if you got a crackle, because I was getting, like, I threw away a Rode microphone, $200 Rode, because it was crackling, and now my brand new microphone is crackling. So obviously,
I think it's packet loss. Then I think there's some kind of packet loss going on. It might be a bad connection or something.
Yeah, I don't know. What
more than likely.
Oh, okay. Well, am I still doing it?
A little bit. Let's struggle through it until we can't.
It's tolerable.
It is tolerable.
Like every other syllable we can't hear. It's just a little, just a little gravel going on. A little gravel.
Let me shut off echo cancellation. Maybe that'll.
Yeah, watch it fix immediately, and we'll be like, the whole time, Mike, the whole time.
I'm sorry.
No, I don't know.
On the stream we did, we Scott?
Yep, that's not it.
Did I hear my name?
No.
I'm going to listen to you. You're doing well. So bye.
Okay, all right. Mike, we got to do this again sometimes, man. We'll have to get it to. This is why I like to do the little 10 or 15 minute advance thing if we can to try it out, because you never know. People that have consistently ran really great systems might that day have a bad thing. And I've had so many that come in right at the buzzer and they're like, all right, let's roll. And then, oh my God, it's a struggle because something wasn't working right. But
yeah,
that's all good.
All right. Bye, guys.
Mike, take care, man. We'll catch you another time.
That was an interesting set of tech problems. As somebody who has worked in the live streaming industry for 20 years, I probably should have been able to help out. But at the same time, I was like, do I really want to turn this into a 3-hour tech support
Yeah, that's
call?
what it's going to wind up turning into. So,
Production values.
Yeah, that's all right. They'll always be tomorrow. I'm not stopping streaming anytime soon. I do not believe. But
evolution, morality. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, interesting subjects to put on the table for sure. I generally, whenever I invite somebody on to be a guest, I let them pick the subjects, and these are the subjects that he picked, which I kind of knew that evolution was going to be on offer. But I was shocked when he said tag. I was really shocked, and I was like, "Oh yes!" But I didn't generally get the tone from Mike that he's a little deterred by the more philosophy side things, and probably just because he's engaged with so many semantics on it. And I want to say this about philosophy and the philosophy bros that we engage with inside of these circles specifically is. There is just such a huge game of therefore this because of semantics. This word plus this word combined equal my semantic thing is true. This is just a game that we cannot help but avoid inside of the circles of trying to prove an invisible being. It's going to be in this domain. Unfortunately, it's not in all of philosophy.
Unfortunately,
philosophy. I'm sorry, Felicia. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Scott. I have just a humorous point to point out. You go ahead.
Okay. Well, as long as philosophy helps engagement in a discussion move along, that's fine with me. But all this penis waving of verbal, and of course I know rhetorical combat has been a thing for years, almost as long probably as there has been hand-to-hand combat and weapons combat. But, in ancient Greece, people had to be really good with rhetorical combat because they could get put before a council and drummed out of the city, So that's one thing. But the kind of philbro is what they call it, or what I call ortho bros, some of these Eastern Orthodox philosophy bros, who is just trying to dominate a space and be more loud and obnoxious so that you can't have an engaging conversation. And speaking of engagement, here's the best conversation engager there is, Simos phone.
Well, that remains to be seen. We'll see. How goes it, Simos?
Yeah, I've just got to say, philosophy, what is it good for?
What is it good for?
The Romans, what did they ever do for philosophy?
What is it good for?
As an engineer, I could just say that these conversations, especially the ones that like Joe Schmidt with Matt, and now a philosophy teacher over at Cambridge having a back and forth with Matt Dillahunty over his claims are not evidence. I just got to say that as an engineer, this is why we made fun of philosophy students.
Scott, Robin wants a link to this penis waving you're talking about.
That was a metaphor, Robin. It's a metaphor.
Yeah, pictures
I
on their
didn't want to
way.
say dick on the stream.
Pictures on their way, Robin. Pictures on their way. So I'm sorry I'm late, everybody.
That's all right.
I wish I'd been here for the tag part because it's one of my favorite arguments.
No, you don't. You don't
No, I
wish you were
don't.
here. So
No,
Mike had technical difficulties. He struggled to the degree that he's given up on fighting
Okay.
it. So unfortunately, we'll do another stream together at another time. But we wind up bringing people in and filling the space on it because of his technical difficulties.
I kind of got something to say on the topic, if I may.
Okay, hit me with it.
Okay, well, it's not really on tag. It's on Tang.
Okay.
Have you heard of Tang?
I can't say I have.
The argument
Great
against
drink.
God.
Yes, Scott, you're ahead of the game as always. It's the transcendental argument for the non-existence of God.
Okay.
And I've got to say, I really dislike people using it. I think it
But you brought it up. Okay.
Yeah, well, I don't use it. I mean, I would never. I'd never.
That was
go
made
there.
famous by what, breakfast tacos, I think, or at least.
No, a
Oh,
long time
Lordy.
ago, Tang
Long time
was
ago.
around. Long time ago, Tang. Was
No,
around.
breakfast tacos is he does the reverse MOA.
Yeah, reverse MOA. Yeah, modal ontological argument. But he does
yeah,
a short version of it that is
he does the
punchy.
he does the Greg Bonson version. Which,
Yeah.
Again, I mean, one of the worst arguments going. I've got to say.
Sure.
And I really dislike atheists using that particularly because
you're missing it though, Simos. You know what
am.
what you're not getting about it is that what it's doing is using their form of logic and it's using the same structure and it's supposed to look stupid. It's supposed to look so stupid. I agree.
It fucking does
succeeded
look stupid.
then. It succeeded.
Hey, look, if they had a sophisticated version of it, I may be more charitable to it. I wouldn't, but I may be. But this Greg Bonson version that they do, right? Was you can't ground it, so therefore you have to borrow from my worldview bollocks. I'm sorry, but this is just a disgusting argument. It never worked when the pre-suppers did it against atheists. Why would you even think of trying to use it against Christians? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Not only is it disingenuous, as far as I can see, not only is it, full of fallacies, mostly informal, admittedly, but also, as Greg Bonson says, the precept argument is designed to shut the mouth of the unbeliever.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just don't want to have a conversation. And as soon as someone starts using that on the atheist side, they're literally saying, I don't want to have a conversation with you.
Sure. Well, and you could caveat some of this by saying ground. There's no such thing as ground. It all just lands in the pile of priors. And nothing's grounded. It just lands inside of the pile of priors.
Yeah. This was the argument I put in against that guy yesterday in side chat. Don't tell me what's grounding, please. Just tell me that first. Tell me that your logic has a grounding in the first place, and then I'll tell you whether or not I agree with it. But anyway, look, I'm just saying, I just find it really disingenuous, and I think that it's doing a huge disservice to the great debate community. This is what we found when the precept argument first came around in, I don't know, 2013 or 2012 or somewhere around there, into the community, people didn't know how to react to it. And it was fun for a few years trying to learn how to defeat it in a sensible way, right? At least the Plantinga version of it. Yeah. And then, and so that was kind of entertaining, and we learned something from that as a community, as the atheist community. We learned that there were these bad faith actors which were just going to misunderstand whatever you say, regardless of whether you say it in good faith or, they're going to misunderstand what an internal critique is at best, right? So there you go, kind of thing. But then after
I don't
a while,
know that it's misunderstanding.
No, I'm trying to be
charitable
in my critique, and then Darth Dawkins came in, and then everybody went, right, we've had enough of this. Fuck this guy, right? So, and then that spread, that spread into like other theists really quite quickly, right? And so now, they start with an evidential argument now, and then once you've kind of got over that, they'll just go, oh well, you can't ground it anyway, and like, well, that's the end of the conversation. So thanks
Well,
very much.
they don't understand that grounding is a concept in metaphysics designed to take your speculative ideas and say, well, actually, it does have a basis in reality. But then they say, oh, but then they proclaim things that actually are in reality need a grounding, and you're just sitting there holding your thumb up your ass like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, for sure.
I think grounding, though, the thing that I try to visualize the grounding problem kind of like we used to have this thing about not understanding how gravity worked. We didn't know how it worked. And when people created world models, like what was holding the world up, right? There was always like, oh, it has to be setting on something. So then we get the pillars, we get the turtles, right? And then there's like, you could do the turtles all the way down kind of argument. And if you keep thinking about the model like this, if you keep thinking about, oh, it has to ground some way, you'll just keep, well, it's on another turtle, or you put it inside of a water like that it's swimming inside of. So this is a visualization of just what we used to do when we have the whole thing wrong about how it's working and we're trying to ground it. If you think about your existence and your consciousness engaging with reality as similar to that world just floating in without. It doesn't have to ground on anything. It doesn't have to sit on anything. You're there with a cluster of priors. You're there with a cluster of priors that seem to always be the case. And this is how you're engaging with reality. You engage with reality and you see how it interacts and you build a bunch of priors. And that's what you're sitting on.
Yeah, I mean, that may well be the case, right? And it may be reasonable. Like, okay, so the way I look at it, and please correct me because I'm probably wrong, is that okay, look, if you think that you're going to give, look, when they say grounding and they try and mix that with a deductive argument, they're always going to be wrong. That's when the grounding just has no hold, right? Because it's just going to fall to, the trilemma. So, it's always going to be a fallacy to argue in that way. And that's the problem with the presuppositional argument, is that they are trying to ground something which has a necessary conclusion, which we can't possibly know. I mean, it's just, as I say, infinite regress, dogma, or foundational belief. And those are just unsubstantiated or unjustified. So we can't know them because they're never going to be justified in a way which is good enough to merit a justification on that kind of level.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe you can give an abductive argument, right? This is where I would refer to probably Russell's sense data and say, look, you can have a grounding on this a posteriori knowledge. That's not going to be a problem to do because you can take sense data and make that into something which is at least modeled to reflect reality, and hence is a grounding, right? But of course they can't do that in the presup argument, and we can't do it in the presup argument either, right? And that's my issue with it, right? Is now you're just playing on their turf. Right, by an atheist making that argument, you're just saying, "Oh no, I know a priori truths." How? That's I've never met an atheist that's claimed that.
You're missing the strength of the argument here, Simos.
Okay.
In that it's not that the argument itself wins; it's that it's a stalemate, and so there's no symmetry break between either argument, and so neither one of them can be true.
Well, there's a symmetry break if you deny the fact that a priori truths are justified.
Well, yeah, but then one of you has to do that.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm saying atheists should never give this reverse modal ontological argument, really, because although I believe Joe Smith has some answer to it, right? It's his priors are, but again, if he's not playing on the same turf, he's just moved the question over, as far as I see it, to this abductive argument, right?
Well, there's another way to do it too. Rather than pulling back and recalling from the argument or the conclusion of the argument, you can run fully into the conclusion of their argument and just change it out with another thing and say the flying spaghetti monster, right? That the flying spaghetti monster has to exist, and I presuppose that the flying spaghetti monster has to exist. Otherwise, how does consciousness come to be? And the reason that I mention this is because they don't have a way of still connecting this. Even if this argument is completely the case, you still don't have a way of connecting it to your God. You can still connect it to the flying spaghetti monster just as easy. that the
Yeah,
flying
of course.
spaghetti
Yeah.
monster is a necessity, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's Russell's teapot again, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
And like, I think the only point of Russell's teapot is to deflect that argument, or at least give some kind of stalking horse argument, right? And saying, look, there's no evidence for that, so what's your evidence for your God, right?
Yeah.
And that you can just pull them back over to the other side and saying, right, I'm not going to go down that route of trying to justify your argument because it's circular by its very definition.
Yeah.
So why should I believe it, right? Okay, so that's the stalemate. It's you're just relying on a fallacy.
Well, you could say, and I've said this about the Bertrand Russell's teapot before. You could have changed that out with literally any object in the room. You could have said a boot.
Of course.
You could have done any object, and of an infinite amount of things that he could have threw a chair up there or anything else. And you just don't know that it exists in that space. And you can do the same thing with a massive amount of propositions of creating entities, to the degree that it seems laughable that theirs would actually somehow be correct if they can't show that their specific proposition has more viability than another proposition. Like, look, you throw all of these infinite things up there into space, like the teapot, the boot, the everything else. Now, when we're talking about that one thing has to exist, even if you were able to prove that something had to exist there, you still couldn't get to which one. You still couldn't connect it.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree, but like the criteria which is missing, of course, is falsifiability.
Yeah.
So if you make your God so recluse that it becomes unfalsifiable,
yeah,
right, then what? Give me the justification for thinking that grounding is needed, or that God can ground anything, even if it is needed.
My argument against the recluse God is, if God is a neat in a closet and he's really lonely and wants to know me, well, tough shit, he better come out and party with me.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Or give me some better drugs so I can come in and find him.
Give me something, man.
Invite me out for a coffee,
Yeah.
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 Or, I wouldn't mind. He could just come in and take me from behind, as long as I knew,
Yeah.
God, you have consent. All you have to do is be here.
Yeah.
Right.
That's literally it. But anyway, look, I just find it very distasteful, having done all of that work early on to pull their argument apart, right? To pull the presuppositional argument apart on different levels as well. And then to turn around and find that atheists are using it in this way to push away the conversation.
Yeah.
Right. To literally stop the theists engaging with us. Right. I mean, now, when I hear somebody do it, I just think, okay, well, that's that one another theist we can cross off the list that ain't coming back. And when you go back to G+, right? I'm sure Scott will verify this. When you go back to G+, you used to get rooms of 8 or 9 theists come into an atheist room and just take turns. And the whole conversation obviously was more evidential anyway, but the whole conversation was a completely different dynamic, where you could get up and say, okay, now I think I do want to talk to a theist today, and they'd pick an argument or whatever, and you talk about it, and it would be quite interesting and reasonable. And there were very few bigots that you had to deal with. Now, all I'm hearing is bigots on both sides, and I'm like, this is pretty pointless. It's destroying the community.
Yeah. Would it be more fair, at least to you, if the reverse MOA and these arguments were presented only after a MOA was presented, and then we're given, okay, let's use your logic and follow it to its inevitable conclusion, this direction? Would that be more fair, rather than just coming out of the gate with it?
That is kind of how we used to deal with Darth, to be fair. There was an excellent debate between Laura and Darth some time ago, and she came up with a very good version of it, where she invented her own god to do it with, and then challenged Darth on that. And it was the same thing as the Christian god, but just a few simpler versions, if you know what I mean, just a few presuppositions taken out. So
do you think some atheists are just taking reverse Moa as an actual argument against God?
No.
Okay, I hope they're not.
No.
No, it's,
No one
it's to
takes
shut
that
the mouth of the believer.
It's to.
And
I think it's to explain that this is a semantic game. It's to not only explain; it's to demonstrate that this is a semantic game.
You can do it in much more less aggressive ways than I've heard people be using it recently. Right? You don't have to shut their mouth. Right? You can just challenge them to dissect the argument. Like that would work, as far as I'm concerned. If Scott, if that was, and that's how we used to deal with it. To be fair, that is how we used to deal with it. I had a debate with Darth once on a Christian channel, and I did something similar, except I used the singularity as my presupposition, right?
Mhm.
And then constructed the a priori argument off that. And then when Darth said, well, what the, that he literally turned around to me, like when he finally worked out what I was doing, and said, "Yeah, but that's just a circular argument."
Yeah.
And the Christian in the room, right? And I went, "Yay, you got it! Fantastic, well done." And then the Christian turned around and went, "Yeah, Darth, but your argument is circular. Don't you see that?"
Yeah.
And he rage quit. But
Oh, Darth rage quit? No way.
A virtual circle.
Yeah. He was also banned from that channel as well because he threw a fit on the way out.
Darth getting banned. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, well, it was a long time ago, and Darth was different in the early days. He wasn't quite so controlling because he didn't have controls back then, so he used to have to come into other people's rooms.
I've never had anything to do with Darth, so I don't know anything about him.
Yeah, he's just an angry man that thinks he knows too much. But there you go. Anyway, look, just to say that's my one pet peeve is the atheist community taking up that particular version, Darth's version of arguing pre-sup, and to do it disingenuously, I think is just wrong. We're just isolating ourselves even further.
Sure,
I agree.
I think that the back and forth is where the interesting part is, and if we want to convert people to atheism, inverted commas convert, or deconvert people, or get them just thinking about their positions, so they become, more metaphorical with their interpretation than fundamentalists. So we can at least start teaching science in a proper way.
Or just provide a definition of grounding and a syllogism for why you think it's necessary.
Yeah, that's never.
Everybody has their own aims in this subject. I've said from the onset of me coming into this game that I had no intentions of deconverting anybody. My only intention is that people allow doubt to prevail and lose such confidence that they have in a thing that they have no good reasons to have confidence in. They have emotional means is what they have the confidence in for emotional reasons, not for logical reasons.
Yeah, no. For me, it's the anti-science and anti-intellectualism.
Sure,
those are the two things, and the reliance on dogma, right, which kind of goes hand in hand. So I'm an anti-theist on the basis that I think dogma is certain dogma is always harmful. It can never be. There's no such time that you can ever say that your mind is even slightly open if you think that your dogma is so unwilling to bend that it completely dominates your worldview. And I think that's a real problem in society because it leads to anti-science and anti-intellectualism, more importantly, and that discourages children from learning and becoming intellectuals, and that's a big problem. So this is why I think that the community needs to reach across the aisle and have intellectual conversations, right? Even if they're useless. The point is we're teaching that the younger people that these conversations are useless, so don't even start going down there,
There's one thing I wish I understood about these conversations, especially when it comes to the Plantinga Moa and the anti-Moa argument that comes up a lot in these debates. I wish people on either side of the debate would would give me a reason to make the S5 to reality leap, because
Oh yeah.
nobody does, and I'm just like, but how do you justify that leap, man? I don't
Yeah.
get it.
Y'all, I'd be happy if y'all carry this for 1 minute. Y'all go ahead.
You can carry this for 20. I can carry this for 3 hours. I can chat, baby.
Yeah, let's talk about S5 for a little bit, because yeah,
It's
I find
interesting.
it. I find it the most like I get why people invented. I get why Christians, I mean, particular logicians invented it, right? But it doesn't hold up, right? It just doesn't hold up. So it seems to me it breaks logic rather than is just another step. Yeah.
It's a weird, it's again, it's a weird semantic game where they go, well, if it's possible in all possible worlds, it must be possible in this world. But it's like, just because it's possible doesn't mean it's real. All you're really giving me is an argument that it's rational for you to say, well, I think it could be like this. Like it's you've basically given an argument to say conjecture is rational. Which, okay, fine, great, but what have you accomplished?
Yeah, exactly. Well, again, it takes it from, to say something is logically possible is to say virtually nothing about the properties of the thing you're talking about. I mean, I don't, that's why, how are you going to tie that to reality? Logically possible and reality are just two different things. So again, if you're talking about grounding, well, you're not talking about S5 logic, are you?
That's true.
So,
well, when it comes to logically possible, I mean, the best counter you can give, especially when it comes to somebody using MOA, is not even counter MOA. It's to it's to say, listen, I understand your position on logical possibility, but the tachyon is logically possible. Now, can you go and prove it exists?
Yeah,
you can prove the tachyon in math, but is it real? Like, math says a lot of things could be real. Math says wormholes could be real. Math says white holes could be real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I kind of agree. I'm not so sure I like the example because,
okay.
I mean, I used this before when some physicists came up with virtual particles, right? The same thing was said then. Are these just mathematical objects or are they real? And of course, it wasn't so much later, maybe 10 years or so went by, and somebody came up with an experiment to test it. So,
yeah,
I was like, well, there you go. Okay, so they are real, right? They may be named virtual, but then physicists name their shit all sorts of rubbish things, right? So, that doesn't matter, right? So, like,
well,
I don't like using real life examples of physics theory.
Well, then use the FSM. It's logically possible.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, the only reason I use something that's physically real or physically understood in the real world is because it tends to bridge that gap for them conceptually. Because a lot of times they'll hear you talking about FSM and they'll be like, "Oh, you're just mocking me." So if I can separate myself from that sort of mental,
well, then do it with the actual God that was actually believed. Do Zeus. Is it logically possible? Right? I mean, that's a God that was, there you go. That's a God that was actually believed by thousands of people. Or you could even run one of the Greek gods or whatnot, that he emerged from the primordial water. Is that logically possible? It's logically possible. So therefore, let's use their own logic and get it to some sense of an inevitability. That is ridiculous. I'm with Simos. I don't see a connection between logical possible and a physical reality. I think if we're going to say that the PSR is solid and we're going to say that everything has a principle of sufficient reason as to how it is, then it seems once the singularity kicks off or whatever caused the singularity, if we suspend that, it seems to me that everything that is happening, it has to happen. It can't happen another way.
Can't not happen.
Right, it can't not happen. So when we're talking about logical possibilities, it doesn't seem to me that there are any other possibilities except what is going to happen.
Yeah, that's kind of. I mean,
have you heard the black bag argument, Simos?
I don't know.
Okay, so this is
Black
an old
Swan.
one.
I've heard of Black Raven, but I don't think
All
I've
right,
heard of Black Bag.
this is the ideal is it's a black velvet bag that you can't see the shadows or the shapes of it very well. We take the black bag and we have 5 dice on the table, right? We take the 5 dice and we take the bag and we go underneath the table, and then after a little bit of time, I come back up with the black bag and I say, is it possible for me to roll 36 points when I dump this bag out? And someone say, yeah, it's possible. And then we dump the bag out and only 1 dice come out. And there was only 1 dice in there. It's a regular, dice. And well, now we know that there was only 1 dice ever inside of the bag. So then the question is, when you said it was possible, was it actually possible to roll a 36? And I think it's obvious now that the answer is no, that it wasn't possible.
Yeah.
So whatever existed inside of the bag in advance dictated what was or was not possible. We just don't know what's inside of the bag or don't know. Well, it's better to say it may be so as far as we know, rather than to say it's possible. But whatever's preloaded in the universe or preloaded in the bag, for this example, as silly as it might sound, when we dump the bag out and a pickle falls out rather than a dice, well, it could not have been another way if the pickle was already in the damn bag. So we don't know what it is that is already in the universe to say what is possible. That's just a waste of time. It seems to me it's a waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I look at it in, my background really is in math, so I tend to look at it that way. And of course, logical possibility is just a set, and it contains all things which are real, right? But all things which are logically possibly not real, right? So, yeah, how do you, the question becomes, how do you distinguish between the different elements and the properties they have, right? So you're looking at subsets. Okay, well, there you go. Now we've just made things that are not real, that are logically possible, into a subset. So it's no longer in the same category, right? So the question is an invalid question. When you say, is something logically possible, there's not enough information there to make a distinction.
Yeah.
Right? You need to know which subset it's in. And the real question is, is something logically possible which isn't necessarily real? And the answer, of course, is yes. Right? So just saying logically possible commits you to no status of reality.
I think we're committed too much to a very definite sort of definition of possibility here. I think what would really help is if we started talking about theory of speculation, especially when it comes to, and this comes from like high risk investment assets type stuff, but theory of speculation basically lets you think outside the well defined box, as it were. And when we say, well, everything's logically possible, but what is logically possible? Is it everything that's already in the bag that we don't know? Well, theory of speculation says, well, let's figure out what we don't know and see if it will actually fit inside the bag first.
Yeah, I'm
it's an interesting thing.
Sure, how do we go about discovering what we don't know?
But as
you're not discovering what you don't know. You're speculating on what you don't know.
Oh, speculating. Okay, all right. I mean, yeah, okay. I don't understand what you're talking about then. I'm afraid. That's over my head. Let's put it
so
that
far
way.
as we know, it could be.
Yeah, so far as we know, it could be. Yeah, that's. So imagine a really high risk asset you want to invest in, a really high risk company like an AI company or something, and you think, well, it's possible that AI takes over the world, burns everything down, and I lose all my money. That's part of your speculation. The other thing that you could also say is, well, I also don't know that the opposite isn't true, that it won't do that. And so you start piling these speculative counters together, and then you start either keeping them in the bag of speculation, or you start getting rid of them because they make absolutely no sense. And it's a long sort of like filtering process, and I think theory of speculation sort of helps out with stuff like this. But we never discuss it because everybody wants to talk in absolutes, and we know these things for certain because that's the position theists sort of thrust in on us.
Sure.
I guess, yeah. Again, the speculation side of it. I mean, I'm a little dubious that we should be, relying. Well, I mean, I don't think they should necessarily come into. They should definitely come into arguments. That's not the point I'm making. I mean, in some sense, we do that, right? When we're doing inductive reasoning, there's this point about, Hume's point about, we can never have a necessary conclusion in an inductive argument.
Sure.
And I think that so therefore there is always going to be speculation in jumping from the premises of that argument to the conclusion, right?
But I think my underlying point is that it's important to outline what is speculation and what is actually possible in the bag of possibilities, because a lot of times I feel like we don't separate out speculation from possibility, and I think that definitional is a problem for not just us, for theists too.
Yeah, that seems more of just a definitional problem that we're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually see, in the way I outlined the example of speculation, under that definition, I'm definitely referring to possibility, right? That's why we rely on induction, because it becomes overwhelmingly possible to the point of probability. So that makes a big difference in whether you accept the outcome or not. But I would accept that there's, fallacies there, right? Correlation and causation are not the same thing. And so that's one way that speculation, is harmful, right?
I try to think of it like this. If B theory of time is correct, then nothing is possible. Everything just is. Okay? It just is. And everything that we're looking at that we see as in our future, okay, we're either predicting it wrong or we're predicting it right, one way or the other. In some sense, we're predicting wrong or right, but it just is. There's no such thing as possibility.
That's actually how I managed to. I think it was Matt Yester, who is a presuppositionalist of the. I think he does tag. I'm not certain. He was a Matt Slick. He was a Matt Slick proponent. He asked me, how do you ground the uniformity of nature, right? and I said, well, I actually, that is one of the few that I can ground, okay, because I understand about mathematics, so I don't have a problem grounding it. And he went, oh really? And I said, yeah, sure. So it went along, I think I've explained this to you once already, Robert, but it went along the lines of, look, every event, right, necessarily follows another event.
Yep.
Right. That's the premise. And then the second thing is, in an infinite or a very large number of events, there's going to be long periods of time where it seems that causation is happening. It doesn't necessarily have to be causation, but it will seem that way, just in the nature of having a very large number of events happen. Right. Yeah. So we could be in that period of time, right, where every event seems like it causes, every effect seems like it causes, every event has an effect, and then an affectation, right?
That's interesting.
So, okay, there you go, and that's the grounding. So randomness is the grounding for uniformity of nature. That's the argument. Now, if you can find a contradiction in that argument, I'd love to hear it. I did it a little more subtly. So I got him to agree with the premises of, large numbers and, random things following each other first. And then once I got him to agree to that, I then pointed out that uniformity of nature could be one of those things that falls out of it.
Have you ever seen these models where they'll create a shape and they'll have like bouncing balls inside of You'll create and they do it sometimes with like light photons and whatnot. You'll create a shape, and then whatever the shape of the confines or the structure is, that the balls that are bouncing inside of them will now take on a new pattern of continuous motion based on the shape of the confines. So if you have a square, for example, and you have these balls that are bouncing back just completely chaotic.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? So as you change the shape of it, you're going to change the pattern of the motion of whatever's going on inside of there. And depending on the shapes that you create, the confining shape is going to create necessary and inevitable shapes of motion that is just having to interact with the physical structures.
Likely shapes. I mean, likely.
Right, likely shapes.
Again, they're not going to be absolute, because you absolutely sure. Three-body problem, etc.
All right, but what you're getting going on here is that you now just have just a physical, a bruteness, whatever you want to call it. That you have a rule of this is how reality is, and it doesn't matter what the shape is. It really does not matter what the shape of that is. What you're going to have is the interactions that are happening inside of that are going to follow certain patterns, and because they are being confined. Any kind of rule set is going to create order. It doesn't matter what the order is. It seems like that if when you have chaos, if you have any constant in chaos, as soon as you introduce a constant, you're going to create an ordered structure. It just has to be.
Yeah, I think that is, interestingly enough, that was how they determined or how they managed to find an efficiency model for steam engines, which was is a really significant mark in history. Is how they worked out what pressure was, Boyle's law, etc.
Simos,
Anyway.
I got a mathematical question for you.
Okay.
If you'd be willing to answer it. I'm sorry. So Simos, your argument for nature, the uniformity of nature, was sort of based off of randomness. That's what grounds the uniformity of nature, right?
Yep.
So I then have a question, and this is not like a pushback or anything. I'm legitimately curious. That seems to be a uniformity that extends up to the macro level to us. Is there anything in mathematics that would predict we would continue to see uniformity beyond this point, where if we sort of zoom out beyond the local observable universe, let's say to 1,000 observable universes, right? Is there any guarantee we would see order in that, or is there a possibility it would seem more random?
Okay, so I think intuitionally, so when I first came up with that argument, I had in mind chaos theory. Okay, so in other words, because it depends on continuality, right? If there's such a thing as a continuous nature in the universe, then you might manage to get some kind of randomness or true randomness. But if there's a discrete part about nature, which is the smallest part is a discrete unit, then chaos theory is always going to apply, in which case there's going to be no such thing as truly random. It's always going to be order, which is the point Robert's making. I think, is that right?
Where there's a constant. If there's a constant, it's going to create order.
Yeah, well, what makes that happen is the discreteness of nature, right? So the quantum nature and the quantum kind of,
so you can't really determine an answer to that question either way without determining Okay.
Well, I'm pretty sure that that you can have infinites. That's not a problem. It's just whether something has no smallest part, right? And that seems to be a contradiction. If you say there's something in the universe which has no smallest part, right? Then it can never. But it's got to reach zero. So that seems to be a contradiction. There are boundary conditions, in other words, right? So the one I'm thinking of is the Dirichlet boundary condition, and the other one is at the greatest size, it's the Van Neumann boundary condition. And I think the universe must exist between those two things.
I just want to say I love the ideal of there exists something. How was it you said it a moment ago that there exists something that has no smaller part?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think exactly how.
Has no smaller part.
Has no smaller part.
There's no smallest thing it can be. It can always be smaller. Always be smaller. Right. And yet somehow it's got to get to zero.
Right.
And that's
ridiculous.
That's the point about boundary conditions, right?
Yeah.
And as I say, these two great mathematicians worked out that there's no curve which can reach that point. But of course, curves are using numbers, and numbers have smallest parts.
Yeah.
So it's kind of begging the question in that sense.
Sure.
So who knows whether the universe has this property somewhere in it, or many multiple universes have this property in it. I don't know.
Robin, how goes it?
Oh, it's good. I've been like double dipping. I've been watching. OE had Richard Carrier on, and then you were supposed to have Mike, and so I had one device. I had one device going in one ear, and one device going in another ear. So I'm thoroughly confused on all things. But yeah,
that's all right. Yeah, I kind of knew. I didn't know what time it was going to be on, but I did know that he was going to have Richard.
Yeah,
Carrier
well, his show always starts at 3. So. See, like, did you change your schedule?
Ooh, I'm right on top of him now, then, aren't I?
Yeah, you're being hard on
Fortunately, he's got Richard Carrier on, who is a pull, so he'll get a lot of views after the fact, more probably than he'll get live. So.
Yeah, well, I thought that maybe Dr. Carrier was going to do some questions and stuff, but he didn't stay long enough for questions. So, but and also I was afraid we might get some trolls in there. And I know like Tilted Mill wasn't there today, so I was afraid maybe I might need to moderate the chat a little bit, but we didn't get too many.
Well, I'm glad you're easily able to come in and out and use the side chat now. Again, I apologize. I have had some abatement I've been doing for some hacking issues. I have been a target from whom I do not know, but I've had a Discord hacked. I've had my YouTube messed with, and now I have lost all my emails back to 2022. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. You know who I think it was? So, like, yeah. But
it was Otangelo.
Nah, I doubt that.
Oh no. Don't say that name again.
Yeah,
but
sorry.
Hopefully everything's now under some order. But yeah, changing the time here, I knew it was going to be a little bit of decrease, obviously in numbers also. But I mean, I just have to have the mobility of Saturday. I don't want to be tied down. And even if I wind up going back to Saturday, it couldn't be anymore at like 2:00 in the middle of the day Saturday. I have a life to live, and I work a regular job, so I want that time to be able to do things with my family and whatnot.
I understand that. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. But
I have 2 devices, stream y'all on 2 different. Yep.
Felicia, I'm so glad that you came in here to try to fill some of the space. Obviously, we had.
Yeah, I can. I'm gonna jump out, let you guys chat.
No.
Pleasure to meet you, Felicia.
We're fixing to be wrapping up in the next few minutes. What I was
okay.
fixing to say is, if you have any links or anything like that, anyone and everyone's welcome to put those in the side. I know that you have broke a milestone very recently. Robin, you broke what was it, 200?
Finally.
Yeah, and Simos, you are knocking on the door presently of the big 5-0 here.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope I am. I haven't checked it today, but
yeah, I checked it today. You were at 481 or 482, I think, the last that I looked at it. So
excellent.
Yeah,
excellent. Yeah,
knocking on the door at it. But you said you're not streaming presently. You don't stream, Felicia, or no? You run.
I think I'm gonna stream tomorrow morning and do a little bit of bit of a coffee chat with atheism tomorrow morning. So that'll be fun.
Okay. And that's
I've just put a link inside chat as well of the hangout that I'm doing in 2 hours time.
2 hours time, and that's fixed to be on the Chris's channel that does.
That's on Chris's channel, and let me just get the name of it. It says "fuck the bell curve."
Dare you?
Can't
remember.
Fuck the bell curve.
Fuck the bell curve. Oh, okay.
The mediocrity myth is racist horseshit.
Is that the
meritocracy myth?
Orthohood.
Is that the Otherhood channel?
Yep, Orthohood. So.
Otherhood, okay.
Otherhood, yeah.
Otherhood, okay. So
yeah.
check him out. It's going to be 2 hours. He'll be on Otherhood, and you can check out Simos's channel. I'll wind up putting links in the video. You said you're fixing to be doing something though, Felicia?
Yeah, I'll be doing a little stream tomorrow morning. I think just chilling with some coffee, chatting, and if anybody wants to drop by, and Felicia by nature, you're more than welcome to.
Felicia by nature, excellent, and we'll put attachments on there. Any last words, anyone? We'll start with Simos.
Yeah, well, I did want to just say I don't want to open a topic up. Have you got a couple of minutes still?
Sure.
Yeah, what was your thoughts on the Matt Dillahunty, Joe Schmidt debacle?
I didn't watch it. I did not watch it, but I saw that a recent video that they had that Matt Dillahunty had Joe Smith and I believe Alex O'Connor was on the thumbnail. Is that what you were talking about?
I'm not sure. I saw Matt's first video when it came out, and I'd had this debate with Steve McRae like back in the day, 10 years ago, about claims being evidence. And I kind of came down on Matt's side, I have to say. I'm not a philosopher, though. And yet, when I listened to Joe talking with several other people, it might have been on Phil's channel, Skydiver Phil's channel, that they were saying, no, claims can be evidence. And I guess we're just then talking about the semantic definition of evidence.
Sure.
But I'm not sure whether that's an accurate representation. And I did want to ask you, Robert, what you thought.
I see evidence generally as anything that increases the probability of something logically being so.
Yeah.
Anything that compels you or compels an average person to think. But again, that it still doesn't mean that it's so. So something can be evidence in that direction and still the conclusion of that direction still not be the case.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Robert.
Yes, ma'am.
I am blocked again.
Lies. Are you serious?
Yeah.
From who?
Yeah. It's not showing. Like my comments went they went not blue, and now they're disappearing again in chat.
Robin, I think someone's trying to damage our relationship here.
So maybe it's somebody that's trolling me and you.
I don't know, but I shall work on it, Robin. I'm sorry to say that.
Let me just see. I can see you. I just saw your comments there. Oh, they just.
Yeah, I've been seeing your comments like the whole time.
Yeah, I can see your comments.
Well,
the last one you put up was "Hey Chuck."
It was what?
Oh, you're a moderator though.
Hey Chuck.
No,
it's not in the side chat.
No, I've gave a lot of comments.
I'm looking on YouTube. Yeah. Put something in YouTube now.
See, my thing's gone. Blue, it's gone. It's not showing.
I'm gonna work on it, Robin, and I apologize.
I know it's not your fault. And see, I've commented and it's not showing up either.
But we'll have to catch that one another time. Right now, just speak. Just speak. We'll put it in the side chat.
I want to say that was just really weird because it was working just fine, and then it went. So, all right. Thanks for having me on, and I'm sorry I missed most of it. Or I was listening. I just wasn't commenting too much.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, nice.
I appreciate it. I thank you for stopping by, Robin. We are fixing to try to wrap it up, though.
All right. Go ahead.
Any last from anybody, Felicia?
Yeah, tag is really just short for that abstraction. It's God.
Perfectly said. Robin, last words?
Well, I did have it for later tonight, but I'll see how it goes with Simos' stream because I'm gonna go over and watch his. So, but it was not till like 8:30 tonight or something like that. So,
fantastic.
I think it's just under 2 hours time. 1 hour 50 it starts.
And we'll put your channel also in the link description.
If you wouldn't mind, that would be great.
Yep, we'll do. All right, Robin.
To Felicia, so that's great. Thank you very much.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. Sorry, I'm going to get with you in a minute. But we're trying to close it up, and I just wanted to say the last things here. But I appreciate everybody, and if y'all hang out for a second, I'll come and talk to y'all for just a second once we end the stream. We just need to wrap it up, though. But appreciate it, Robin. Thanks for stopping by here. All right. Later, Robin. Bye. Well, everyone, I thank you for the stream. I apologize that we did have a little bit of a debacle with our guest. Unfortunately, he had some connection issues. Hopefully, we'll have Mike back on again at another time. We're going to have on next week, we'll have on Ed from Rabbit Atheist. But we'll have to get Mike back on at some other time. Unfortunately, it was just some connection issues. But as always, thank you for watching. And remember to stay skeptical.